All right. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Monday, which means it's Better Call Saul Day. Best day of the week for me. Um, we are at Season 4, Episode 2, Breathe. So if you haven't seen this episode, please, this will be full of spoilers, so I just want to cover a few things. So this week, wasn't interrupted. Got to watch it right on time. But that doesn't mean I didn't miss things last week, and I want to touch on a couple of things that I did miss last week. Namely, the first big thing, which is in the flash forward, the cab driver. I can't believe I didn't talk about that. The Albuquerque isotopes hanging in his mirror, the eyeballing. I mean, it's hard to... Look, this show loves to kind of take things that are just coincidences and try to make you think that they're bigger than they are. Like the nurse, where you think it's a big thing, but it turns out to just be a technical error on her part. He could just be an Albuquerque Isotopes fan. But there's just something about the way he was looking at Jimmy that, makes you go, oh shit. Now, it could be that maybe the guy's just kind of concerned at Jimmy's kind of behavior. Asking to get out right away, and then kind of acting bizarre. Maybe he's on his phone. Maybe, all sorts of things. But, it wants you to go down that road. It wants you to go down the rabbit hole with Jimmy and be as paranoid. Because that's the situation. That's the tension that it was created. So it was working. It works really good because you just don't know. What the end result, if anything, was going to come from that. Okay, and also the end of the episode, the quick turnaround from Jimmy, just switching on and off, when Howard tells him, about the suicide and everything, and how guilty Howard feels about it, and Jimmy just being like, well, Howard, that's your cross to bear, and just gets up. Instantly, he has gone from being lackadaisical and more, just kind of shell-shocked to whistling and doing stuff and going around, and just everybody, and the reaction of everybody else of, oh, okay. So I just thought those are a couple of things that I missed that I really hated that I missed, and especially the end of that episode comes up in this episode quite a bit. So. Another thing, before we get to the episode, I want to talk about is, while I was watching this, I started getting this feeling like, so there are people that haven't seen Breaking Bad that watch Better Call Saul and not that. And so for those people, this is like, without knowing what's coming, this is probably like their Breaking Bad. Because once they get to it, if they decide to keep going and watch Breaking Bad and see how it all turns out, it's amazing. I started getting a little worried in this episode of because I know where everything goes, that some of the scenes might not be necessary because it's called Better Call Saul. And until near the end of this episode, I kind of was going, well, yeah, I know Gus hates, Hector Salamanca. And I kind of felt like, man, when is this season, because it's getting closer to the timeline of Breaking Bad, a lot of this is feels like it's just being wedged in there because we're in that world and we've introduced these characters, we've got to tell this part of the story. And I kind of was getting mad that it was being put in here, like the stuff with Mike and Lydia and the stuff with Gus and his doctor and everything else. I at first thought about it. I was getting a little like, this is becoming too much Breaking Bad and not enough Better Call Saul, because the scene with Jimmy in the copier place was goddamn brilliant. The scene with Kim and Harry, just dealing with the will and stuff, incredible. The stuff with Mike and Lydia, and the stuff with Gus and his doctor at the beginning, they just kind of felt like, yeah, we get it. This is stuff that if you're a Breaking Bad fan, it's like an Easter egg. by the end of the episode, I changed my tune because, and I'll explain that, I'll explain that as I go, but it just felt like for a second there, we were getting too much Breaking Bad in my Better Call Saul, kind of like the joke on Family Guy with you put your chocolates in my peanut butter, your peanut butter's in my chocolate, like just the things mixing a little too much, like, but now I see things a little bit differently. So I was a little worried there for a second, but here we go. So the scene with the beginning. First off, I was liking that it was Gus's doctor from Breaking Bad, testing things out. Like, oh, is this how Hector ended up in that wheelchair again? From last week when I said that. And what was worrying me, like I said, is that too much Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. But what I always knew that Gus hated Hector, and I knew that like he was keeping him alive, for his own kind of purposes, making this, man live this life till he decided he wanted to take it. But what I really like is, that they could have done, like in a different way that I wouldn't have been pleased with, that they've done really well here, is showing the detail, the attention to detail that Gus has with the level of control he wants over Hector. Like he has got him now. Like Hector was this force that was always a threat out there. But now that he, and this isn't how Gus wanted it, but now that it's happened, he really has him like, he's trapped. He's got him in this little trap that he can just, now he can, like he's in like a little figure. Like Hector can be now put wherever he wants and done with like any little, like a toy. Like, oh, I can now do this to you. I can do this to you. I can do anything I want to you. He can have all the control. He's his little plaything now, except Hector doesn't know it. Hector thinks that he's just got a bad heart. And that's that attention to detail that Gus has that I just love. And the quality of care that he wants him to have. All these details that I didn't know about, watching the other show. So that's one thing I really do appreciate about what they're doing here, is if you're going to put Breaking Bad in Better Call Saul, give it something that you didn't know, like change the way you will end up watching Breaking Bad later. That's one thing, I guess, is what I was trying to say. The roundabout way of saying is that now when you watch Better Call Saul, you'll be able to watch Breaking Bad in a different way with all these different details. You'll like understand the characters in ways that you didn't know about later. Like how you feel like everybody likes Mike on Breaking Bad, but now after seeing him in Better Call Saul, now you really probably hate Walter more when you watch Breaking Bad. Because now that you've seen how this journey goes, like he's become more of like a character that you can root for, even though he's a bad person. But like, so when it'll change the way you watch Breaking Bad. And that's one of the things that's brilliant about the whole creation of this show, is that if you're going to do a prequel, make it so that it changes the absolute fabric of the nature of both shows, of all the characters and how you see things. Now, I still consider Walter White to be, no matter how bad I know he is, and probably always was, I will never watch that show without wanting to, I still root for him the whole way. I just do. I might get a little more mad at him, because I've probably seen the show like 6 or 7 times all the way through. I may tweak my opinion a little bit here and there, but anyway, let's get back on topic. So, going back to, yes, like now you can see these characters, you can see Gus, you can see Hector, you can see Mike, you can see all these things, and the way they unfold in this show change the way you watch Breaking Bad. And so that's really cool. The fact that he brings in a specialist from Johns Hopkins and to come in and get him as well as he can get him. The 2 nephews are still creepy as hell. I'm pretty sure that when Nacho and his partner there walked in, that they wish they could walk right back out, because even though the doctor says you guys need to talk to him, they're not gonna, like, they should be the ones talking. The big bald nephews, not his henchmen, not his guys out on the street. When she says that you need to talk to him, but they can't talk, they're too busy probably killing puppies in their minds. So these poor guys gotta sit there and give, like, gangster chit chat to Hector. And that looks on their faces. I mean, these guys are just death incarnate. And so when they look at you like you're not talking good enough, it's like these poor guys have to come up with any kind of conversation to have. And the thing with Mike and Lydia. So Mike has to have this little conversation with Lydia, because if you've seen, like, again, Lydia's a character that is wound so tight. She's like what Ferris Bueller says about Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She's wound so tight, if you put a lump of coal up her ass in 2 weeks, you'd have a diamond. So she's just up Mike's ass about the little visit that he had, which was fantastic. But in her mind, that's, and she's like a fucking nervous little, just always just wound tight. Everything could bring down and crash down around her, and her world is so fragile. That she's telling Mike that he needs to back off. Take the paycheck, sit in your house, but that's not Mike. Mike's basically telling her, hey, screw. Okay, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. You got 7 more branches I gotta visit, I gotta do it. And just as in usual Lydia fashion, yes, she goes running to Gus, who basically says, well, then get him a badge. Because it shows that even Gus is kind of like, I have to deal with Lydia. But one of the things about Lydia that bugs me is that if Gus has always been, he's so careful. Now, why did he ever get in business with a person like Lydia, who is, like I said, she is always ready to, she's the weak link. She's the one that would crack first, in my opinion. And I don't know why Gus doesn't see that. And if he does, I just don't see his character allowing being in business with her. Or maybe it's because she's the only one with morally flexible values enough in the company to do it. I don't know. And we get the thing at the end. You get Nacho talking to his dad. His dad still, he's refusing to not pay his tribute that he doesn't need to pay anymore, out of stubborn pride. You see a lot of stubborn pride on these shows. And but he does want to know, like, is his son getting out? And that's just something that I feel like Nacho is a doomed character, no matter what he does. And speaking of doomed, when they go to the deal to get more, product, they push it again to get the Salamancas get 6, and Gus. We've seen Gus's 2 main guys in action before, and they're not to be messed with. So the fact that they even let Nacho pull the gun, even kind of to the side and everything, and give it to him, it's like they just kind of look at him like they're just playing with him. That the only reason they're taking them apart right then and there is because Gus doesn't want it to happen right then and there. And so I guess it should have. As soon as I saw the shadow out of the corner of my eye, I was like, "Oh, they're getting jumped right now," and they were. So, and it's Gus. Okay, you don't see Gus get involved too often, but Gus is the one who jumps on that dude, puts the bag on his head, slams him against the car. Zip ties him, has him choke out. And tells Nacho on his knees, I know what you did. The Salamancas don't. You belong to me now. So I guess it's going to be up to Nacho to get rid of his buddy there and have to try to explain what happened. I don't know if they took the product or not. I'm purposely getting through these parts first, because what happens on the actual Saul, Jimmy part of it is way more like dramatically interesting to the story. This is all just the Breaking Bad stuff that I'm trying to get through first. So there's all that. Mike is hanging out with his granddaughter and everything, and yeah, you can tell that things are going to get pushed, and Mike and Gus are going to have a conversation pretty soon. And as we see later, Jimmy's trying to get a hold of Mike too. So let's get to, so Jimmy is up and going, and I do think that all of this has to do with Chuck's death. But also, like, I was really kind of confused during the interview scene, which was great, because Jimmy can just sell anything. He says he doesn't have salesman experience, but I mean, quickly when he talks about his lawyer background, how he's always selling. He's always selling a judge, selling a jury, selling his client. And all just Bob Odenkirk just killing it. And at first I didn't understand why he has a great interview. He clearly knows Xeroxes. He sees the Hummels, and I just went Alpine Shepherd Boy in my head. And you're going through these things and not really thinking anything. And he leaves, he's had a good interview, and that's great. And then he has this quizzical look on his face, and I go, oh shit, what's he gonna do? And he goes back in there, and then he sells himself even better. Like, he walks in there and says, what you need to do to get a job. Hey, you could do this, you could wait a week, you could waste money. And he gives this performance that's a little over the top with the whole cha-chunk and the heartbeat of the Xerox machine. But I'm like, okay, man, this is the kind of get up and go. And those two guys see it. They're like, yeah, man, you imagine people trying him, getting customers in front of this guy, like, he's gonna sell like crazy. And then he flips it on him. They give him the job, and he basically tells them, you guys are crazy. I could be a serial killer, I could piss in your coffee, I could do both. And he's like, you guys are nuts. And he leaves. He doesn't take the job. And then he automatically goes to the parking lot, takes another interview. Hey, a sales associate, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until later, okay, so let's just keep going though. So Jimmy was supposed to go to this meeting of Howard's. I called him Harry earlier. So, but he says he's not going, he trusts Howard. But Kim goes in his stead. And she really wanted to go. She wasn't supposed to be a part of it. And Rebecca's there, Chuck's wife, ex-wife, and they're just going over Will stuff. And this is Rhea Seehorn's, or Rhea Seehorn's, however you pronounce her name, performance, man. Holy shit. And the guy who plays Howard. Both two really good performances, basically because she just blows up, and his reaction to her is fucking awesome. Like, these two actors killed it, because she gave off a side that I didn't know was gonna pop off there. Because it's just, okay, here's the $4,000. This is what you, there's the snarkiness at first where Rebecca's there, like, this is what you give somebody when you don't want them to, take anything. You want to just shut up. It's hush money. Like, here's some money and shut up. Then he gets the letter that's only his eyes only, and Rebecca leaves, and she's like, no, we need to talk. And this is where she just pops off on him. And honestly, I hadn't really considered it either, because Howard is like, it's like getting sucker punched by her, because Howard did seem to be like just sincere, but she is more concerned with Jimmy's overall well-being. And you can see now how Howard dealt with throwing all this stuff at Jimmy right after the services about Chuck's suicide. Like, Do you really, like him screaming, getting burned alive by fire, and then you tell him this, and then you want me to give him this letter and the scholarship that he never would have given Jimmy, and this letter that's going to be another fuck you to Jimmy, and just blown fair? You want to talk about fair? And just Howard's reaction of just like gut punched, just holy shit, and his honest, like, what can I do? What can I do to make it better? What can I do? Like, he's really fucked up. She fucks him up with words, man. It is beautiful. And she's just like, nothing. Just stay away. Just get out of this. Like, I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it. It was really, really well done. And yeah, I hadn't considered that. I don't think Howard had either, but Kim had. Kim is worried about Jimmy. And so when she comes home and he comes home with dinner and everything, and she gives him that look, I wish a woman would look at me that way, because damn, she really cares about him. And they, and they go to bed, and he seems fine. He's telling her, I got this job, offer, but it's not perfect and everything else. And I'm like going, okay, well, what's going on? Then you see him looking up the Hummel figures on his computer late at night. And he sees the value. So here comes Slippin' Jimmy a little bit. He calls Mike, I got a job for you. I think you're really going to like it. So here's what I figure he's doing. He's doing like what Spud says in Train Spotting when you go in for a job interview. You want to do good. You just don't want to be so good that you end up getting the job. And I think that's what Jimmy's doing, is he's at least doing his due diligence to go out there and appear to be trying to find work. I don't think he has any intention of really taking a serious job. And so that first job, when he'd done well enough, but he didn't want a callback, so he went in there and put on a performance that shouldn't have worked. In his mind, I don't think was supposed to work. But it did work, and so they were going to hire him. So he had to find a way, well, fuck, I can't take this job. Like, you guys are crazy. I'm going to say all this other stuff. So Jimmy plans on robbing this guy of his Hummels. He can make some money off of it. And in this way, he doesn't have to, he's just waiting it out until he becomes a lawyer again, I guess. There's probably more to it. But that's my first impressions of it. It's great. And again, I like everything across the board in here. I know I skipped around to different parts, but the end with Gus Fring taking down that dude and telling him what was what, that was amazing. So I can't wait to see what goes on next. Those scenes with Jimmy and Kim were two of the best of the series. All the extra Breaking Bad stuff, again, is fine. Like I said, it will make you change the way you see the original show. But just some solid powerhouse performances going on today. And that's about it. There's just a great episode. And I was I think the reason I was having all those thoughts earlier is because I was not quite on board with the episode at the beginning. I just thought too much Breaking Bad, not enough Better Call Saul. But by the end of it, you put that whole package together and you've got a great freaking episode. So anyway, if you like this video, please hit the like button, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notifications. I love this show and I will try to be as in-depth. If I miss things, if you disagree with me, just let me know what you guys think about things like that. I will try to get better at this show's reviews as I go forward, so I'm not just all over the place. As usual, I am pretty stream of consciousness, so I can get off on tangents quite a bit. So I apologize for being a little all over the place at times. But anyway, that's it. This is Rob for Smirking Gun Reviews saying we will see you next Monday for another Better Call Saul. Otherwise, you can catch us to watch more episodes of, we've got The Expanse, The Man in the High Castle, Ozark, all sorts of stuff that's going on in here on the channel. We've got Disenchantment coming on Friday. Ozark Season 2's at the end of this month. Walking Dead will be coming. I don't know if we'll be doing Walking Dead, but anyway, this is Rob for Smirking Gun Review saying I better get done with this video pretty soon. So have a nice night. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.